How far is that process right now?
Well, we have not yet reached that stage because, as you recall, yesterday we started very late with the President's poll report, followed by the SG, and then last night we ended with the Treasurer General's report. So when we begin this morning, we're going to be doing with the credentials, and then after the credentials, the whole issue of nominations by the Elections Commission of the ANC will then resume.
As far as credentials go, are there problems there?
Well, we have not yet received the report, but I do not foresee any challenge because, as you know, we are a very vibrant organization, 4,500 strong delegates from the branches. We should expect that there will be one issue or two, but overall, I think we're on track.
As far as the court cases are concerned, are you worried perhaps about an interdict against the conference itself? Are you worried about delegates from the Free State who won that constitutional court decision?
We are not overly concerned because, as the ANC, we know that the Constitutional Court has pronounced on this matter that there is no PEC anymore in the Free State, and the NEC has taken a decision to ensure that we do not create a hiatus, so there is an interim structure. So insofar as the Free State delegates are concerned, there's nothing to be worried about.
The 320 will be part of conference and they will vote?
They are part of the conference and they're going to be voting.
Okay, and that is in line with the court decision?
Definitely, because if you recall, the Constitutional Court's order says nothing about the National Conference of the ANC. It had to do with the provincial conference that was held in Paris on the 21st to the 23rd of June of this year.
Just talking about policy matters now, what are the critical policy issues that for you as head of policy have been bubbling and have been a matter of conversation in the branches of the ANC?
I would like to see a paradigm shift in ordinary members of the ANC to talk more about the economy, because as you know, in the past 18 years, we've consolidated our institutions of political democracy. We need to make sure that we talk more about self-employment, talk more about skills development, education, so that we can be able to change the structure of the South African economy to reflect the population demographics of our country. So we need young people to be interested in being job creators rather than seeking for employment.
When it comes to education, we're already spending massively on education, the structures, FET colleges, universities, and of course in basic education. What is a different conversation to have now in terms of education, and how is the ANC to drive that conversation?
We need to see more discipline, especially amongst the teachers and students, as the President emphasized yesterday, that we don't want to see teachers who go there and teach students for about 2 hours. They must be there in class 7 hours teaching every moment, so that we can be able to inculcate that discipline of ensuring that our people understand that education is the future of this country.
But the President has said that before. I think 3 years ago he said it in Parliament. Teachers must be in class, on time, teaching and so on. How is it to be done differently then? How is it to be tackled?
That is why we need to raise this political consciousness amongst those who are in the classroom, because government on its own cannot be able to resolve these issues. We need to ensure that those who are participants in this education revival in South Africa put their shoulder in the wheel. The teachers must be disciplined. The President also spoke about bringing back inspectors, so that people must be accountable.
The relationship, at a policy level, the relationship and the proximity between ANC and the trade union movement, ANC and SATU, for instance, in reigniting that, could that not be perhaps an Achilles heel, limiting the ANC's ability to say this must be done because of the nature of the relationship, as it were?
No, we're in alliance with COSATU and other progressive unions in South Africa. They have to be responsible as well. That is why even the SG was very talking tough yesterday in ensuring that SACTU, as the representative of teachers, they must come to the party so that they can share all these values that we are sharing as the ANC. And we believe that with more talk, we can be able to climb this hill in order to ensure that the children of this country get the education that they deserve. If you look at our budget, the biggest budget slice goes to education, which indicates our firm commitment as the ANC to ensure that we ensure the future of our children.
Minister, I feel like I'm asking the same question again, but you've been talking with the unions and as part of the labor movement, as government, as the ANC at policy level for quite a long time. How is the talking different now? How is this going to be different to galvanize this so that it's more than just talking? When we have a conversation again, you will then say, I'm seeing the results. This is what's happening and that kind of stuff.
You and I view, that religious people, they go to church every Sunday to revive. You don't say that, every Sunday you go to church, let's not go to church anymore. Let's do this political revival 365 days of the year so that it can sink to people that there's no choice. All winning nations, they prioritize education. The discipline is of critical importance so that the teachers must be able to deserve the title that they have.
Okay, let's talk entrepreneurship, job self-creation and stuff like that. How is that going to work? How is that going to be unlocked as a value proposition to grow this economy?
Well, there are this variety of institutions in government. You've got your ITC, your National Empowerment Fund. You need to make sure that all those institutions, they talk in sync with the objective that you want to attain. Already within government, there is a cluster approach where economic development, trade and industry, finance, they work together in order to ensure that we consolidate all these initiatives so that at the end of the day, access to finance, access to capital by budding entrepreneurs must not be an impediment because of bureaucracy, be it ITC or at the National Empowerment Fund. So all these issues, including our responsibility as government departments, that when we issue out work to entrepreneurs, we need to pay them within 30 days after an invoice that is correct, that is valid. Because sometimes we as government, we kill these budding small entrepreneurs because we do not do our job properly. About a month ago, the president called the Intergovernmental Forum of Premiers and local government to ensure that those accounting officers who do not do their job by paying within 30 days of a valid and correct invoice, they need to be taken to task.
All right. Minister, let's leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Jeff Radebe is Minister in the Department of Justice, Constitutional Development. In this capacity, of course, speaking to us as Head of Policy in the African National Congress. You're watching Morning Live now. What we've done, we've talked entrepreneurship and business people, emerging entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. Let's go to Mbongeni Muto. A couple of times we've said to you, there is a business briefing, blah, blah, blah. Let's take away the blah, blah, blah and say the business briefing is going to get underway now. Mbongeni, good morning to you. What's happening there?
Good morning, Vuyo. I hope you can hear me this time around. The business breakfast, which was supposed to be addressed by the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, is well underway. Of course, he didn't show up. Instead, his deputy, Ndladla Nene, is the one who's addressing the business forum here. It's very interesting what is happening here because this is part of what is called the Progressive Business Forum, which is a fundraising drive by the ANC to raise money from big corporates, presumably to try and cover the massive costs of hosting this big gathering here. But to tell us exactly what this whole idea of the Progressive Business Forum is all about, I'm joined by Dr. Matole Motsekga, who is known, of course, as the Chief Whip of the ANC in Parliament, and of course, a senior leader of the ANC. Dr. Motsekga, thank you very much for joining us. What is the Progressive Business Forum?
You will know from the outset that President Zuma called on all sectors in society to form a partnership for reconstruction, development and progress. Now, usually we think that when the majority party interacts with business, it's all just about fundraising. It's much more than that. Because as the president said, we need partnerships. These partnerships are actually aimed at building the nation. Now, the aim here should be seen as drawing closer to the majority party, all the sectors, so that they interact with the majority party. They here get first-hand information as to what the vision is and where this party seeks to take the country. So it is important. It was important that a forum like this be formed. You will know that right now we have had a policy conference. Now this conference is the one that is going to take final positions on what the policies of the African National Conference as a Congress are as we move forward. So it's important that the leadership of business should get it from the horse's mouth. And of course, we call this a progressive business forum, because this is a forum of the business leadership that have committed themselves not only to support the majority party, to support government, but also to be an active partner in building a new and cohesive South African nation.
With their checks, of course, in this case, it's a big part of it. But we all know
if
that
you go to church, there's a tithe. Every Sunday you pay, but you don't pay because you are buying admission to heaven. You are paying because you want to sustain the church, and here the progressive businesses are paying because they want to sustain the vision, a progressive vision of the movement.
Just briefly, Shamozeka, we know that coming to this conference, the business community, especially the big corporates, are very nervous about the outcome of this conference. They fear that we may end up having a situation where the whole issue of nationalization, which has been a big problem for some time in terms of certainty and so on, that we come out of here and there is no clear and direct and unequivocal statement that says nationalization is not going to happen. There's been talk of strategic nationalization and so on and so on. As part of these interactions with the corporate leaders here, are you trying to allay their fears? And also, can you say that all their fears and their concerns will be addressed at the end of the conference?
You know, in South Africa, there's nothing to fear. The ANC championed the establishment of a constitutional democracy. Now, if you look at the delegates that are here, they come from each and every ward in South Africa, delegated by assemblies of South Africans. So you can be rest assured that no irresponsible decisions would be taken by this Congress. The people that are gathered here are the people who put South Africa first, who put the interests of the country first. So there's nothing to fear, and that's why our leadership has been engaging with business to explain how the ANC conducts itself and arrives at its position. The ANC cannot act against itself, because the interest of the country that the ANC stands for is the interest of all the people, including business. So business has nothing to fear.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, viewer, there you have it. Just to let you know that tomorrow we're expecting another big economic minister, Ibrahim Patel, to address the business breakfast here. And then on Wednesday, another big one, of course, where Trevor Manuel is expected or is scheduled to address the business community. Also, just to remind also your viewers that two nights ago, on Saturday evening, before the conference even got underway, there was a gala dinner which was addressed or hosted by the president himself, Jacob Zuma. And we understand that the business people, those who wanted to sit at his table, they had to fork about R500,000 each. It's back to you, Via.
Thank you very much, Mbongeni Mutwa, updating us on that business briefing. So there's another one tomorrow to be addressed, I think he said, by Minister Ibrahim Patel. You're watching Morning Live on SABC2. When we return, we'll talk about the Women's League reaction to President Jacob Zuma's address yesterday. Stay with us.
This Monday on Motswako, we speak to the multi-platinum selling gospel sensation Winnie Mashaba. She speaks to us about her humble beginnings, her musical journey, and about that man in her life.
Ka tšatši le lengwe ke le ka makala ke le ka tlaseng ya karate ge ke tshwanetse ke dire matric wa ka 2000 ne ke passitse ka condom jwale ka batho ka moka ke dia diphoso.
Go na le ntate Mashaba. Join us this Monday at 9:30 p.m. only on SABC2.
Sunday on 2.
This is a murder investigation from 2 weeks ago. Does anyone else find that odd?
Yeah, me. Gear up, boss? Nope. Let's go. Dead Marine, grab your gear? Nope. Grab your gear. Got a body. Mysterious.
Stand down, Skippy.
U.S. Attorney's an old friend. We worked together when he was a JAG officer. He called in a favor.
A favor?
NCIS, Sunday at 10.
Umwakaeng, ke Mangaung. Mayo, turn away.
Yeah?
This!
Sabonana late, usungayilibala impahla yakho ye-pirates. Nama-handboy lawa werabha ava. Nkunzi yami yomvenda. I-baby oil uzawufika ikulindele ke nayo.
Wednesday at 9:30 on 2.
Welcome back as you watch Morning Live on SABC2. A very good morning to you. Today is, of course, the start of the second day of the 53rd National Conference of the ANC. Now, yesterday, President Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma delivered his political address to the 4,500 delegates here. And represented, of course, is also the ANC Women's League. Joining us is the president of the ANC Women's League, Angie Motshekga. Ma'am, good morning to you.
Good morning for you and good morning to listeners.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. What was your reaction to the president's address?
I thought it was a very sober speech in view of some of the tensions that were there. We really needed a speech which reassures both ANC member and the country that things are fine. Where the difficulties were aware, we'll do something about it, but there's no need for panic. And I think for me that was very helpful, just to reassure South Africans that things are fine.
Now, in terms of developing a gender balance and a fair gender representation, are we achieving that in terms of what was said by the president yesterday? Are you comforted that we're moving in the right direction?
We've made lots of progress as the ruling party in terms of quotas, representation of women in parliament, in government, also in ANC structures. I mean, it's policy that 50% of people on every ANC structure must be women. What our challenge is now, it's really translating those numbers into real change in women's lives. We have sponsored a resolution which we want discussed in all other commissions, which we think will help us to really raise the bar and move to another level, because that's where I think the challenge is.
In terms of representation in the top six and what is mooted as potential top six going forward, are you satisfied with the way things are looking?
Not quite. As a women's league, we had put 3 women, 3 men, but this is an ANC conference. The numbers are with ANC branches, so if you get outvoted, you have to accept it. It's an ANC conference, not a women's league conference.
The ANC branches are not supporting this resolution about 50-50?
No, the 50-50 resolution is not on any part of the structure. It says the entire structure must have 50% of representation. So it does not necessarily identify top 6 as a structure. So we are confident that when the final list comes, there'll be half the number will be women, half the number will be men.
Wouldn't it be ideal, though, in your view, when you look at it, wouldn't it be ideal to have 50% representation in the top 6? Isn't it something that as Women's League you feel strongly about?
Sure, that's why we had actually in our first list, we had put 3 women just to make sure that indeed, if possible, we can get at least half the women in the top 6 and then also get half the women in the additional members. But as I say, it's an ANC member. What counts is the numbers that come from ANC branches.
Talking about just policy matters to come up, what for you as the Women's League are critical issues that affect the lives of women in this country that need to be looked into in significant detail at this conference to ensure that going forward they are properly addressed?
I think the economic empowerment of women and the marginalization of women from the economy. For me, the best thing that I think we could achieve as a country, those women who are selling in the streets, it means those are entrepreneurs who have a get up and go. If we could really find a way of empowering those women who really already had started themselves up and put them in the mainstream of the economy. So for me, the biggest issues around the mainstreaming of women in the economy, but also empowering them economically so that they can be able to look after themselves. They're not really having the survival economy that they're involved in.
So the Women's League proposals in terms of that empowerment are what? What should be done to get those women into that kind of place?
We think we've made a number of proposals, for instance, in terms of even government contracts to say there are contracts that ordinary women can really participate and it will change their lives. For instance, linen in hospitals. We train women, then they supply. So that we have a deliberate effort to identify areas where, as government, we can support women. For instance, in school nutrition, there are lots of things that women can do to participate in the school nutrition. So it's doesn't go to tender and then it's everybody rushing for it. But it's earmarked for women so that women cooperatives are supported and are enabled to really get out of the margins of the economy.
Is there a favorable look, a favorable positioning of that, or are you still needing to consolidate support around those visions?
At the policy conference, we raised it and it was accepted as proposals to this conference. So I'm quite confident that we will be able to get it. But at the policy conference, we had tabled it as a proposal and it was accepted as a recommendation to this conference.
Yeah. Just in terms of the nominations processes, are you satisfied where things are from what has been put on the table from the branches, or do you think that the ANC Women's League need to be much more stronger in the branches to do much more work there?
I think as Women's League, we fought our battle. As a Women's League, what we did first, before we even got into the battle, was to develop a list of women, strong women, and lobbied ANC branches. And if you look at the final product, you see that the majority of women that we had campaigned for are going to be in the ballot. So we did our bit of homework. We failed to get the 3 people on top, but with additional members, we really managed to identify very strong women in the league, and they are on the ballot, and I'm sure they're going to go through.
Yeah. There's a remark, Minister, that you made last week about not being feminists. What does that mean?
No, what I'm saying as a Women's League, it's not our work to always be, we are a gender structure where we really look at the balance between men and women. We get consent, for instance, when boys slack back, because we know it will create problems even for society if boys are not empowered. But we also, because women indeed are left behind, and that's why we emphasize on women. So our gender structure, we are not like pushing for women's issue at all costs against anything. We really want a balance between the development of men and women.
Does this mean you reject the view of feminists?
No, not quite. There are feminists in the Women's League, but we're saying it's a good balance because the feminists will definitely push hard for women, but you need also people who are not necessarily feminists who will try to tone down the push for just women.
Yeah. When you look at this conference, Minister, do you feel that the cause of women in South Africa, on the back of the work of the ANC Women's League, will be enhanced, or is it just going to be business as usual? Sure, we've got a bit of the numbers. Sure, there's a bit of consolidation around. Let's improve the lot of women, but we will continue the way we've been continuing.
No, I don't think so. I mean, the resolution that we had tabled at the policy conference, we had strengthened it now after the policy conference. We had a number of consultations. If that goes through, I'm definite that it will change the lives of women.
Okay. Thank you very much. Angie Motshekga is president of the ANC Women's League, joining us, giving us a perspective, their reaction first to President Zuma's address yesterday, who presented, of course, as you know, the ANC's political report here at the 53rd National Conference of the ANC. Now, we also want to get a perspective from the ANC Youth League, and we're going to be joined just now by Ronald Lamula. Stay tuned for that. Morning Live continues after this. What we should do is return you to the studio in Johannesburg and take a break.
The SABC brings to you the ANC's 53rd conference from Mangaung. From the 16th of December, SABC 1 Sunday Live will be hosted live from the conference.
powers or else face the consequences. So we'd love to get some comment on this as well and see what the ANC Youth League have to say about this. Well.
On the radio at 9 o'clock. Thank you very much, Leah. And just some perspective on as far as what people are saying. If you'd like to tweet at Mbuli Vuyo, at Leanne Manners, share with us your thoughts about what the leadership of the ANC has been saying on this 53rd National Conference. We've just had a conversation with Angie Motshekga, president of the ANC Women's League. Is the ANC Women's League, as a young woman, as a woman, doing enough for you? Or do you feel like the ANC Women's League need to work harder? We're now talking to Ronald Lamola of the ANC Youth League. Are they doing enough? What are your thoughts? Tweet at Mbuli Vuyo. Ronald, good morning to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Vuyo, and to the viewers at home.
Okay, please tell people what you're saying. Must I stand on a step there?
Yeah, no, I think you need...
Really now?
Yes, I think you need to go up.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your reaction to what President Zuma was saying yesterday.
No, I think he has laid the basis for thorough conference engagements. We're, however, disappointed that we felt that the speech should have given more on where we are as a nation and where we're going to theoretically in terms of the national democratic revolutions and the risk for us to achieve the strategic goals of the national democratic revolution. But also we have been disappointed by the fact that he also did not mention nationalization when it was adopted by the policy conference. At least the SG mentioned it, and for us it's an issue that we'll take with Congress to ensure that the strategic nationalization of certain assets in the country happens and we begin to scout which assets are going to be nationalized. The Youth League has already proposed which ones, but we are happy with the fact that he spoke on education, he spoke in detail on education, he spoke on detail on youth development and youth unemployment. He also spoke on detail on the social challenges affecting young people, and he has shown enthusiasm and willingness to confront the challenges of the youth of South Africa. So it's for us to add impetus into that struggle to ensure that...
Can you still do that, though, as a youth league at this time?
Yes, as you can see, the Congress theme is socio-economic, is action, unity in action for socio-economic freedom. It's a reflection of the impact of the Youth League into the policies of the ANC, because the theme of the Youth League Congress was economic freedom in our lifetime. The ANC could not adopt it as it is, but at least they have put what the Youth League wants, and the speech of the president also reflected, and the SG speech reflected on how the ANC Youth League has influenced and ensured that the ANC think out of the box on the issues of the natural resources and on the issues of land. So it's a reflection of the role of the Youth League. He has stated it very clearly, the SG, and we think that we can be able to optimize our level of influence from many other sectors, even in the Congress.
Now, just thinking back to 2007, I mean, there were words like kingmaker that were associated with a youth league at this time. This must be a difficult conference for you as the youth league, for some who describe the youth league as being in disarray right now.
The Youth League has never been in disarray. It has always been able to hold its meeting regularly. It has always been able to continue with its campaigns, and it is continuing to be a board of influence in the structures of the ANC. The Secretary General's report has said that it's a critical board of opinion. There are indeed challenges that are happening, and you will remember the issues that affected the Youth League, weekend it and so forth. But it's still an organization that is pursuing its interests, and it's also pursuing the policy perspective in the ANC. In all provincial general councils and nominations, the Youth League's influence was felt in terms of policy, but also in terms of the outcome, in terms of leadership.
Yeah. When you talk about problems, I mean, recently there was a report about what former president of the Youth League, Julius Malema, was saying about you. What is the nature of your relationship with him right now?
No, I don't need to have any relationship with him. For me, what is important is to implement resolutions of the Youth League. The National Congress of the Youth League has given us a mandate in terms of resolutions, and that's why we continue with the resolutions. We continue with the resolutions that have been given to us by the structures of the organization. And when we have a relationship, it should be political between ourselves and him, and that's where it will end. And we must continue to ensure that the organization continue to survive and respect the constitution of the ANC and that of the Youth League.
So are you saying there's no relationship between yourself and Julius Malema right now?
No, he's a member there in society, and there are things that I can't deal with, whether we've got a relationship or not. We have always been there as comrades, and that's, for me, it ends there. And we must just implement the resolutions of the organization. We can't run the organization in terms of friendship. The organization must be run in terms of the policies and what are the resolutions of the organization saying.
So there's a newspaper report today that says that he has written to the NEC asking that he be reinstated. I think it says Floyd Shivambo as well. Are you familiar with that particular letter requesting reinstatement of that, and would you support him being reinstated into the NC?
No, I'm not familiar with the letter that we have said, but the Youth League always had a resolution that the issue must be raised in Congress. I'm not aware that he has written or Floyd has written a letter. What I'm aware is that the Youth League has got a resolution that the issue, delegation of the Youth League or any other member of the ANC must be able to raise the issue. I'm not aware that they've written a letter. But
are you going to raise it?
Yes, the Youth League is indeed going to raise the matter.
From the floor, or how is it going to be raised?
Yeah, that was the intention. But if you're saying there's a letter that has been written, then it changes the whole picture, because it means they feel themselves they can raise the issue and they don't have trust in the leadership of the Youth League that is here, which I think they should have given that space to the current leadership that is in Congress to raise the matter, because that is our commitment.
Yeah. Are you optimistic about this conference, just in terms of where it is likely to go with all the legal threats and stuff like that around it?
Yes, we remain optimistic, and we are going to raise whatever we feel aggrieved about in plenary. And we will not flick or be afraid to raise our concerns, because we do have concerns that I might not share now with the nation in terms of the processes that led to conference in many parts of the county branches and structures. So we will definitely raise our issues in plenary.
Okay. Ronald, thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Thank you.
I'll grant you your wish. Ronald Lamula of the ANC Youth League. You're watching Morning Live on SABC2. You're welcome to tweet us. We are at Mbuli Vuyo. Text 33726. Tweet at Leanne Manners as well. Just looking at some of the messages that have come through. Temba Madi says, need to categorically clarify current Free State and Northwest PECs, our representative leadership, haven't played role in branch establishment. That's Temba Madi's view, tweeting at Mbuli Vuyo this morning. Let's welcome Sipho Siepe, who is a political analyst, and he's got a particular view about the judiciary and the constitution, society, and party politics. Sipho, good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
All right, so it's an interesting view. Just share with us this view.
Well, I think the Constitution is very clear about the issue of separation of powers. But also we want to separate also issues of law from issues of politics. And there's always a need for people to mobilize, what people call try to enjoy the support of the people. And if we come to a situation where every time there is a defeat, people rush to the courts, then you are introducing legalism instead of political activism and political ideology, hegemony, and activism that must come with politics. And there's a danger when people begin to resort to the courts. And some judges, like Dennis Davis, have almost intimated that we must be very careful and cautious, because in the end, if the courts begin to interfere in political processes, you are going to end up undermining the courts, where the people are going to reject what comes from the courts. And there seems to be, and that's why the ANC itself, both the Secretary General of the ANC and the President of the ANC, have raised this concern. But at the same time, the ANC itself must be able to be seen to be undertaking processes in a manner that is consistent with their own constitution, because what the courts will do, they'll look at whether procedures are followed properly, and if they're not pronounced. But
if you pause a bit, the courts are an arbiter on matters brought before them, political, business, or otherwise. Now, how would that then work if an aggrieved party within a political party is not able to say, I'm not satisfied with this outcome. I'm not satisfied not because I'm not popular, but I'm not satisfied because of process. And I want somebody or an institution which is outside of this environment to look at the facts, consider them, and then after that, give a verdict based on their independent evaluation of the facts placed before them.
Yeah, I think it is a challenge, because when you talk about separation of issues, it's not clear-cut. This is why the courts sometimes, even when they approach, they will reject the approach. I mean, if you take the case of the song, the court says, even though the other equality court had pronounced on it, but when it went to appeal, the Supreme Court of Appeal asked the ANC and the AfriForum to talk about these issues, because these are not issues these are issues of political education, because a court cannot start pronouncing, and when the court's decisions get rejected, it ends up undermining the courts. For instance, if the court says this song is unconstitutional and people should not sing it, what do you do when you have a whole stadium singing the song? Are you going to arrest? So you'll have a situation where a court order is unenforceable because it is not popular. So there must always be, and the Khamuseneke as a Deputy Chief Justice had said that the courts cannot be so distant from the people. So the issue is that we must be able to determine, is this a political issue or is this about a process that is consistent with the constitution of that party?
If we apply the current legal matters to the discussion we're having, would you then be saying that the aggrieved members of the Free State ANC should not have gone to court?
Well, I think the ANC may have mishandled this matter because this is not an ideological matter. It's an issue of management. So they have actually gone to the court, but one has not seen what the court actually has said, because the court itself is thinking about it. But it's also very important for you to also see that the court is not unanimous on this. You had 3 judges who hold a different view. The fact that 7 hold a particular view does not mean that the 7 is correct, because ultimately it boils down to numbers. And there have been times when courts have been wrong. And also even the Constitutional Court, there are people, including people like Judge Edwin Cameron, who had actually raised that some of the decisions that they have made needs a careful scrutiny, because they may not have enable the court to continue to be seen as a real arbiter, because it must be seen an arbiter, a neutral party that when I go there...
Not necessarily a popular one.
No, not necessarily a popular one. But there are times that you must also understand that the judges themselves are also product of society. They're also influenced by what goes in society. I mean, in this country, we've heard the media saying something about a corrupt relationship, which another judge never said. But when the court pronounced, the Supreme Court, they refer to what was referred in the media, not in the courts. But that shows how easy it is easy for the courts also to be influenced by society. So that's why the line must be drawn. I mean, COPE is now learning a very difficult role that if effectively they see the court as having sided with one particular faction, that's why they're also appealing. So we need to protect the courts from themselves. In the same way that the political parties must be seen to be following their own due process, because if their processes, if they violate their process, then the court will rule that, but we are looking at these facts and you have not done a proper job. But I do think that we need to start having this discussion about the role of the courts and in the political process, because ultimately we might undermine, because when you talk about democracy, you're talking about people's sovereignty, you're talking about the people. And the courts don't exist, the people don't exist for the courts, but it's the other way around. Okay. But there's a sense where we are beginning to think that we exist for the courts, and that is a very dangerous route.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Thank you very much. Sipho Siepe, the role of the judiciary in considering elements in the political space. Your thoughts? Tweet at Mbuli Vuyo, text 33726, tweet at Leanne Manners. This has been Morning Live, continuing this morning until 9 o'clock. Indeed, we do the same tomorrow. We welcome your thoughts and we welcome your engagement on these particular matters. Now, you know, on Morning Live, we've been fairly aggressive as far as social media, in particular with Twitter, but others use platforms such as Facebook and so on. Even here at the ANC's 53rd National Conference in Mangaung, social media is playing a very prominent role. Morning Live producer Sbu Hlela went out, and this is what he found.
Digital news on social media is visibly trendy at the ANC National Conference. SABC Digital News is closely monitoring social networks. They also follow journalists who use social networks to reflect on what is playing out at the event.
Okay, what people can expect from us over the course of this conference is regular news updates, like news stories on our website. We'll also be putting up on our social platforms, on our Twitter page and on our Facebook pages, we'll be putting up whatever updates there are that go out. We've got journalists all over the conference, whether inside, some of them are outside, and just in Bloemfontein in general. So we'll be putting those up, which are very quick ways of letting people know what's going on. And it's not only limited to the conference goings on, it's also like people outside, the reactions from people, how Bloemfontein people feel about what's going on here.
Whether tweeting or Facebooking, journalists and delegates here are glued to their techno gadgets. It's almost impossible for some to put them down. Sharing posting stories surrounding the conference.
What's currently trending on Twitter is obviously this conference. And then second is Chris Brown, strangely enough. So we've kind of beaten him with regards to that, politics over entertainment. On Facebook, it's not really possible to know what's trending as such. What you would look at is things like the most popular pages. A while back we had a look at the pages that are supporting different nominees for the NEC.
To get the blow-by-blow of what's trendy on the most popular social networks, log on to the SABC Digital News website, which is www.sabc.co.za/news. The website will also be streaming live all the open sessions of the ANC National Conference. Sbuhlela for Morning Live in Mangaung.
Interesting piece there, Spoo, from Mangaung, talking about the power of social media. It's actually quite incredible. I mean, not being there, I think one of the ways to keep updated is to just follow the relevant journalists on Twitter. Everything, as it's said, is brought to you on Twitter, live on your screen. So I must say, it's incredible how social media has transformed the way stories are brought to us. Let's take a break here on Morning Live. We'll have more. Stay tuned.
It's my home.
Entering into the second day of the ANC's national conference. This, of course, being the 53rd conference that's taken place. Yesterday, getting off to a little bit of a bumpy start, but nonetheless, still delegates were brought in and listened to what the president had to say. They listened to what Gwede Mantashe had to say as well. Lots took place yesterday. Let's take a look at this highlights package that we've put together.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chair. My name is Derek Ngobeni, Bongi Mabunda Branch, Mopani Region, Limpopo Province. Comrade Chair, we do not agree with the program in its current form because of the following. One, in terms of the constitution of the ANC, the political report by the President, the organizational report by the Secretary General, and the Treasurer's report are reports presented at conference on behalf of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, and all of them must be subjected to a discussion and ultimately ratification. That is the first issue. In the program as it stands, we are only allowed to seek for clarity on the organizational report. We are saying all the 3 reports must be subjected for a debate and ultimately adoption. That is what the Constitution of the ANC enjoins conference to do. It is not me. It is. You can quote the provision in the Constitution of the ANC. Secondly, Chair, there's an item on the messages of support, 2 hours. We do not know, and it's going to be plenary, I do not know who are the structures that are going to be given time to address plenary. We think we should know, and how much time are they being given, because it can't be an open-ended session where we're going to be given political report. A message of support must be a message of support, and we must know from now as to which are those structures that are going to be given that particular opportunity. That's why, Chair, I am suggesting and proposing that we should amend the program and adopt it consistent with the provision of the Constitution of the ANC. Otherwise, I would personally object on behalf of the province at whose pleasure I came here.
Thanks, Comrade Chair. I'm Johnson Lukeli from Limpopo, Sibulwani Muregu branch. I'm a branch delegate. I'm moving for the adoption of the program as stated.
Well, it looks like we can assume we're adopting the rules of procedure by acclamation. Now, comrades, can I highlight an area that for me is critical, and that comes to the rights of delegates to speak for 3 minutes. For 3 minutes, in order for us to allow as much time for different people to.
We're going to be bringing you more and more of these highlight packages throughout the week as we broadcast here on Morning Live until Friday, 9 o'clock every single morning. Vuyo will be positioned down there, and he'll certainly be keeping us updated and abreast of the latest news that's coming out there. Vuyo, as you do know, is doing the SAFM program from 9 until 12 o'clock this morning. So he's left us now. He's gone onto the radio, so you can catch him continuing to talk about what's happening in Mangaung on SAFM at 9 o'clock. Well, let's take a look at policies now, and this is what people at Mangaung have to say about the ANC's policies and what we should be looking at very, very closely.
Yes, it should be changed somewhere, but not all of them, because I think especially the indaba yemisebenzi ngicela kufanele balingi bayimisebenzi ilunge umsebenzi ukwenzela kuba abantu bathola imisebenzi ngobuninzi.
I think they can have a look at the education policies because there was a lot of problems, especially in Limpopo.
Within the ANC policies, like our educational system, you know, we should be given platform to be rewarded with bursaries for deserving students. There are times, you know, when you can't have an entrance to varsity, but you need to be given an opportunity maybe to college.
Yeah, actually the problem with the policies is education. When it comes to education, things are not so serious. Then in terms of the educators, there are problems, but if you compare in the past, educators were regarded very, very serious. Education was a priority.
There's too much of corruption, and I think if they can just work on that, you know, for the better of the country, that will really work as an advantage to our country.
The ANC policies up to so far now are good, because like in terms of promises of jobs, they are delivering. But in terms of housing, they lack the service in housing development.
The crime is a problem, and the rate of unemployment is too high.
Education, our lives, our homes, especially they suffered a lot, really.
I think they should emphasize on education. The youth is really, I'm not going to put it blatant, we are corrupt. They should strategize on behavior, on education, and they should fund us more and on job creation.
Unemployment as well, it's very important for the youth out there who are unemployed, for the other people who are qualified, whom don't have experience and all that.
All right, that's the word on the street at the moment, talking about policy within the ANC and what they would like to see changed in the country. Yesterday also saw Gwedi Mantashe giving back a feedback session. He was basically talking about quite a few things, but reports saying that, I suppose, on the receiving end of a rather scathing attacks was COSATU and the ANC Youth League. Gwedi saying that ill-disciplined ANC members, the party's Youth League and COSATU, received a tongue-lashing from the Secretary-General at the National Conference, and he had quite a few things to say. Most people, however, really liking what he had to say and being well-received, singing songs while he was speaking. A couple of people apparently rolling their hands, saying, bring on a new position, but this is the difference in opinions that's happening at the conference, and we're going to see it happening throughout this week. Well, let's actually have a look at some things that the Secretary-General had to say yesterday.
The fight against slate politics must be won, comrade, because slates weaken the movement. I can share with you the experience that we had when we talk about this as officials. They say, yeah, you were a product of a slate in Polokwane. Now, because you are a beneficiary, it must pay.
All right, well, there you go. That basically is bringing to end what the highlights are saying from yesterday and the things that were unfolding at Mangaung. What's happening today? Well, the latest that we're reporting on here is that nominations for the ANC's top 6 officials will take place today at the 53rd National Conference in Mangaung. Delegates will also continue with credentials. Credentials yesterday being an issue, some huge delays taking place. Just going back over it, the ANC adjourned the conference at around midnight last night after it decided to put the discussion of credentials on hold. President Jacob Zuma delivered his presidential report yesterday, and as we saw, the Secretary-General, Gwedi Mantashe, gave his organizational report, and the party's Treasurer-General, Matthew Spoza, delivered his report too. The conference, starting at 8:30 yesterday, was delayed for about 4 hours. So that really bringing in a couple of delays, but them saying it's not going to happen again today and should be smoother. Well, that's it from us here on Morning Live. Remember, until Friday, 9 o'clock is when we'll be broadcasting, bringing you more from Mangaung every single day. Please do remember, Morning Live will be on your screen until Friday, and then we take a bit of a break next week. So we look forward to bringing you all of the latest from Mangaung. You take care of yourselves everywhere, and we'll see you again. Take care, shap shap, and God bless.
Washumandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana ngefree